I'm Amy.
And I'm Hannah.
And we're your passport tour guides. I hope you brought your sunscreen today because we're near boats in the harbor in the ancient city of Corinth.
That's right, Amy. Corinth was a port city that actually had a couple of major harbors. The city of Corinth was in the country we now know as Greece, and Corinth was located on a narrow isthmus.
An isthmus? What's an isthmus?
I'm glad you asked. An isthmus is a narrow strip of land with sea on both sides, forming a link between two large areas of land. Corinth was kind of a gateway for ships traveling between Rome and Asia or the Middle East. Travelers with goods to sell or trade could sail all the way around Greece, or they could cut through the isthmus, cut through Corinth, and pay to have their goods and their boats hauled across the isthmus.
So I'm guessing there were lots of travelers in and out of Corinth.
Yes, there were. The people living in Corinth were very diverse. There were lots of people who had come there from other countries, brought their own traditions and their own religions. Corinth was a large city with a lot of wealthy people, and it was also very beautiful. It even hosted the Isthmian Games, which were kind of like the Olympics.
Neat. Did our country win any medals at the Isthmian Games?
No.
Oh, well, maybe next time. You know, and Hannah, we're making Corinth sound like the place to be, and that's nice and all since we're, touring it. But we should probably also mention that Corinth has a bit of a reputation.
A reputation? For what?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're going to list the top 10 party cities of ancient Rome, Corinth would be pretty near the top of the list.
Oh.
Yeah. Part of that party reputation has to do with it being a port city and all the different kinds of people traveling in and out of the city all the time. But part of that reputation also has to do with a famous temple in Corinth. This was a temple to the Greek goddess Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love.
The goddess of love?
Yeah, and apparently a temple to the goddess of love meant that there was a lot of prostitution going on. So much so that calling someone a Corinthian girl meant that you were calling them a prostitute.
Well, this just got awkward.
Yeah, but even though it's awkward, it's important for us to understand that Paul wrote the letters to the church in Corinth, and he was writing letters to a people who had a reputation and lived in a place full of sin. And even though these people were trying to follow Jesus, their old habits were hard to break.
I see. Just because you start believing in Jesus, it doesn't mean you immediately start acting perfect.
Right. Following Jesus and putting your trust in him is a journey. You learn a little bit at a time. The Christian people in Corinth, a city full of people living apart from God, needed a patient teacher to get them back on track.
I guess that's why Paul visited Corinth several times and wrote them letters.
Yeah. 2 of the letters Paul wrote to the church in Corinth are in the Bible, but we know he wrote more than that. And these letters deal a lot with specific questions the Corinthians asked on how to do things in the church and how they were arguing about with each other. Even though the letters were written to specific people for specific situations, we can still learn a lot from them today.
It may seem kind of surprising that Corinth, a city with a bad reputation, ended up being a city where the church grew and people met Jesus and started believing in him.
You're right, Hannah. Paul and the other Christians who visited Corinth and taught in the church there could have stayed on the boat, sailed right on by, and probably no one would have blamed them. We should be thankful they got off the boat.
Well, even though our formal tour is coming to a close, we'd love to invite you to hop off the boat now and explore a little more of Corinth. Check out its beauty and meet some travelers and traders from exotic lands.
Just stay away from the temple to the goddess of love, okay?
We're your passport tour guides, Amy and Hannah. Enjoy your stay in Corinth.